Hello. You are listening to the Carroll Connection with your host, Jared Carroll.
Hey everybody, welcome to the Carroll Connection. I'm your host, Jared Carroll, here to bring you guys another great episode. I did want to take a chance to shout out my last episode 154 with Brandon Woodward. And on that episode, he came back on the podcast, his second appearance on the podcast, talked about his kind of like career change, like going to school for psychology and then becoming a recruiter. Talked about that, talked about the foundation for his friends who had passed away and the meaning of that still. And his journey with spirituality and how that's been going for him and all that great stuff. So you can check that out at thecarrollconnection.simplecast.com. Also available Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and all the major listening platforms. If you like to watch your podcast, go on YouTube, search The Carroll Connection, and it should pop up right for you. And if you want to be a guest or return as a guest, hit me up on Instagram at Jared M. Carroll at The Carroll Connection, and we'll set that up. So obviously, with the holidays coming up, I'm pretty much almost booked with all November, looking towards December, kind of like the beginning of January. I usually take a couple weeks off towards Christmas because it's obviously it goes Christmas and New Year, so it's hard to get people around that time. But be aware of that. Be patient with me of booking stuff out. So I'm trying to get everyone that I can in towards the end of the year and starting into next year in the pursuit towards 200 episodes. That'll be the goal towards the end of next year. So that'll be great stuff. So that brings us to today's episode 155, bringing back a legend to the podcast who's been on several times. Last appearance was episode 103, where we talked about men's mental health. But joining me is Jake Wickham.
Guten Tag.
Welcome back to the podcast, brother. And for you guys, we got a little special treat. It's like I talked about prior episodes, I was going to Germany. So this is the Germany trip recap podcast. And my man's decided to dress up. So I don't know if you want to show the camera the lederhosen pants, because I know obviously
guys, the legendary lederhosen.
Yeah.
So these are leather pants. They grip the thighs pretty nice.
You could literally hear that on the mic, just
Stretching.
like
Yep,
the tight stretching.
leather.
And
Yep.
yeah, so you bought that outfit for specifically Oktoberfest while we're out there. You, Jordan, and our dads. I did not participate in that. I do not fold under peer pressure for something I would probably not wear again. But you guys got it for the experience, and that's dope as fuck. And
if we ever go to any other Oktoberfest, if we're going back to Germany or there's some that are over here, now I have an outfit for it. Plus, like, if I wear these to any party, if I wear these to any, like, we got Halloween coming up. I'm going to go to my buddy Ethan's. Shout out Ethan Lancio. And I'm going to be wearing these. So, like, I think it sets, like, the tone when you show up in leather pants,
I mean, yeah. I mean, got the lederhosen. Everything is going to be hot and ready now. So,
yeah.
like, committed to the bit at this point, at least for Halloween. You're locked and loaded. So
because, like, it's funny. I thought that it was going to be a little, like, I don't know, like, offensive to the culture to, like, just, like, wear their stuff and pretend that I'm a German citizen, right? You're like, oh, I don't want to go over to, like, Ireland and dress like them, or go to, Spain and try to act like I'm Spanish. But, like, it was pretty normal because everyone at Oktoberfest was wearing this. So, like, they welcome it for the tourists to be dressing up the same way. It's like mariachi. Like, you don't want to go to Mexico wearing mariachi, but you ask them, they're like, we don't care. Wear whatever you want.
yeah, as long as long as you're not impersonating too, like you're buying in. They want you wearing cheap ass costumes either. Like,
yeah, that's the point, right?
They want the real stuff. Like, if you're gonna come to our stuff, wear the real shit. Is kind of like the mindset and the kind of FAQ that we got prior to the tour that you didn't know was a tour. So.
Yeah. So this was a week-long trip to Germany, guys, and my father helped set it all up. So we had a tour guide, we had a whole list of itinerary stuff to do, and he didn't send it to me. He sent it to all of you guys. And when he sets up a trip, I'm just kind of that I guess ignorant kid where I'm just like, yeah, my dad's got the trip scheduled, we're doing whatever, like, it'll be fun. And as soon as we got to the airport, everyone's like, oh yeah, we're gonna be doing all these tours. I'm like, doing fucking tours? What do you like? I had no clue.
It was going to be interesting because we had really no idea how this was gonna go, because it was a beer lovers tour. So it was drinking beer with a side of sightseeing was kind of the vibe of it, which as many of you guys know on the podcast, I'm not a crazy drinker, not anymore at least. And I was a little nervous about that. I was like, oh God, this is going to be a lot of drinking. Like, there was not one time on this trip where I was probably not buzzed.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it was pretty much buzzing the entire time. And then obviously Oktoberfest, fucking drunk, dude. I was fucking cocked. Like, I literally was telling our barber, Manny, that I haven't been that drunk since like high school. Like, it was like, I was hammered. Like,
The boys were buzzing.
oh, the boys were definitely buzzing. And like, spots of that night were definitely kind of little like shady. Like, I don't remember everything. Like, some of the conversations that were had that night can't confirm the entire like context of those conversations.
Yeah. Dude, I was trying to talk to random German people and have like conversations, and it's so hard to do when you're hammered and you speak only English. Like, they speak good English over there, but like still, it's like, there is a little bit of a barrier,
Yeah, the language barrier is definitely tougher. It was weird because this was the first country that I visited. I don't know if that was for you as well. That where the language was specifically something that we don't speak. Like, I'd been to like Mexico, but like it was kind of like not the same. It was Cancun. It was like a resort, so it was kind of like U.S. still. Like, it didn't really feel like Mexico almost.
Yeah.
But in terms of like Europe, like this is definitely the only country that I've gone to so far where like you get there and like it's German. Like, this is the language, and like people speak German and a little bit of English. The younger crowd knows English because of like the way things are now with social media and technology. And
Education over there is to train them on multiple languages.
Yeah, I mean, it's just the way that society has gone. Luckily for us, because we're the only country that really doesn't push 2 languages in school like that anymore. Mm-hmm. Hopefully that'll change, but it's just weird that we don't do that. It kind of makes sense though, because like obviously we're descendants kind of like of like the England, the United Kingdom. Like, that's where like those settlers came over, and that's what kind of started it. But like, to not try to pick up like Spanish and stuff like that, and like not try to like include that in the curriculum is so weird. Where like Germans, like that, they're taught like English like right away, and I think that helps with like traveling and stuff like that too for them, especially dealing with travelers. It only makes sense in that aspect.
Yeah, and I'd like to hear, I mean, anybody who's in the education system today, like I bet kids nowadays in America are learning Spanish earlier because, I mean, studies show that when you learn language when you're younger, you hold on to it better, because you're a sponge when you're a kid, so you can learn pretty quickly. So like over in Germany, France, Italy, they're learning those languages young. And the more you use it, the more you practice it, that's when you really retain it. Versus when we learned, like I took Spanish class in like middle school and high school, and you're doing the one class, and that's only for like a half a semester. And then for the rest of the year, the summer, you're not speaking Spanish, you're speaking English.
Yeah, it's predominantly English. Yeah. So it was the same thing. Like, I wish I stuck with Spanish. I switched to Portuguese in high school, and it was similar, but like, I don't fucking remember like jack shit from that class. Like, it was just kind of, you had to do it. And then like you got through the first 2, it's like, well, might as well take the next ones because, like, the professor or the teacher, and, like, he's not crazy and hard, and, it's very laid back. We watched, like, Rio so many times in Portuguese. Like, that was, like, the thing he did when he didn't want to teach. So they don't, like, take it as seriously as probably, like, Germans did with teaching English.
Yeah.
So that was, like, an interesting dynamic to the education system. And obviously, I want to talk a little bit, too, about, like, the value of travel as we go through the podcast. But, what was kind of like your impressions as we took off when we got to Bombeck was the first place we went to that little like restaurant in the castle before Bombeck, but kind of talk to me a little bit about like how you felt going into that trip, like getting into Germany.
Yeah, I mean, it was cool, like landing in the airport. We landed in Munich, and then we took the bus over there. And, from the Munich airport over to Bamberg, it's north. There was a lot of different farmlands, it felt more rural. It felt more like slower pace. Obviously, when you're in the cities, it's faster pace. Like Munich's pretty busy, and in Berlin's busy. But it did feel like similar but different. Like the houses felt older. There was more like stucco style. Like it was more like that stone mason look, right? Like going into Bamberg, there was so many buildings that you just walk through, and there'd be buildings that are like, you could tell it's pretty new. And then there'd be like this giant, church that'd be from like the 1800s, 1700s, and it's all giant and stone. Yeah, the people over there, they just seem to live a little bit slower, like just from talking to the guys over there, like they have 6 weeks paid vacation.
Plus the I think it was Catholic holidays. And
Yeah.
I think they said it was like 21 of them or something. So like 6 weeks plus all those holidays.
Mhm.
Like it's just a different way of life. Way different way of life.
Yeah, like we'd be walking around, like being the tourists that we are, taking pictures, looking at stuff, and it'd be like, I don't know, 10 a.m. in the middle of the day, and there's just kids running around during the middle of the week. It's like, I'm not at school. Like, what are these kids doing? Like, they're just like people of all different generations just out and about, living their lives in the city, like shopping, going to cafes. They'll be at a cafe for an hour, sitting down, drinking coffee, just socializing. And you see a little bit of that here and there, but mostly it's like on the weekends. Like it's not during the week because we're just so go, go, go,
Yeah, we're very work focused here, and they're very. It seems like based on just like the experience that we had in those towns / cities, is they're more life oriented and more family oriented. Like everything like shut down at 8, 9 o'clock was like ghost town basically, and like that shows like a huge difference in the way that we operate versus the way they operate, where it's very like, all right, we worked. It's time to go home be with our families. Like we don't need to be out doing stuff, and it's interesting to see that that difference because like our culture like starts depending on like the day. Obviously, the weekends they're kind of more lively. There's more people out doing things.
Yeah.
But like the weekdays, like everything's like kind of like done by like 8 o'clock. So I thought that was kind of like a interesting thing.
Yeah, and one thing that's interesting too is like, and this is one of the people that was in our tour group. One of the guys, Eric, that was with us, he was mentioning, is like they also like they have a good mix of like generations, right? So like when you're out at like a bar or a restaurant or something like that, there's like people of all ages just out eating and drinking. You know what I mean? Like he was saying that it was in the United States there'd be bars that he'd go to. This guy's an older guy. He's like 60, 50 or whatever. And he was like, yeah, like I'd go to a bar in the United States and there'd be all younger people and they'd look at us, give us weird looks. But in Germany, it's not like that. I could go wherever and there's people of all ages. So it's like, it is weird to see like how generations are more tight knit than in the United States, where we're just kind of like, I don't want to hang out at a bar with a bunch of old people,
Yeah, yeah. I think it's
sorry, old people.
I think I mean just the whole culture in terms of the way they like go about things, and two, where we were in Germany was definitely more like kind of like rural. Obviously, we got to Munich and it's very city based, and like the people there are gonna be different, but the mindset, like they don't. I think what was funny too was like the beer aspect of everything. Obviously, we're on a beer lovers tour, but like everyone was drinking like all the time. Like you go like even Monday when we were like touring Munich, walking through different places, like people were just in the halls drinking beer. Like obviously some of those are probably tourists, but like there was probably a good handful of them that are also not tourists that are just drinking because that's part of the culture.
Yep.
And it's interesting to see like that drinking culture differ from the way that United States drinks. Like it's like it felt way more like calm and relaxed versus like you drink out here and it could kind of get chaotic sometimes almost.
Yeah, like people are drinking out there socially, like on a regular basis maybe, versus over here people try to drink to get fucked up.
Yeah, and obviously we did experience that later in Oktoberfest,
which is like, meant for people to drink and get fucked up.
Yeah. Exactly. How did you feel about Bombeck? Like, what was your opinions on it? What was like, because obviously Bombeck and Munich were completely different experiences. So what was like Bombeck for you?
I mean, I thought it was a great time. I think that that place had a lot of culture to it. It had a lot of history just from doing the tours. I mean, that like church that we saw that was like in the middle, like we're going over the bridges, was pretty cool. I sound like a tourist here, but they had like their city hall like in between two rivers. We had some guy named Eric come out and tell us some tales.
Oh, Eric the storyteller,
bro.
That bro, he chirped. He chirped a lot.
Chirping, telling tales, man.
Tell him about the first time he came up to the group, because the joke he made at that point was like so funny. I don't know if you know what I'm talking. I'm trying not to give it away without when he came up and he kind of just walked over to his bag without saying anything. He pulled a you know what moment, like relating to our president.
Oh yeah, yeah.
I don't know if you want to tell that story. 'Cause I
So
thought that
like
was
this
funny.
guy would be giving us a tour. He's the storyteller. Like it was part of the tour. So like we had different like brewery stops in this tour. Shout out to the Bavaria guys. It's the Bavarian tour. Scotty Stevens. He's the boy.
Bavarian trips.
Yep. If you
Got the
guys ever
sticker
want
on
to
it.
go to Germany, you want to go to Munich, hit up this guy.
And there's not only just beer tours. He does Best of Bavaria. They said they do a Christmas one as well.
Yep.
So there's a bunch of different tours you could do. But for the people who are German, who like drinking beer, this is a great trip to go on because like you get. I kept saying to everyone too, like there wasn't really a bad beer that we had. Like the smoked beer we had was like kind of
It was
iffy,
unique, yeah.
but it wasn't bad though. Like I wouldn't say like it was bad. Like it's not something I would get again, like order myself almost, but it was still a good beer though. Like at the end of the
Yeah.
day, like it was like Guinness with like smoked wood in it. It was like weird, but regardless, check them out. You could probably find them on Google and stuff. If you typed in Bavarian Tours or Bavarian Tour Scotty or like
Yep.
you could probably find them that way. And I would definitely recommend it because dude's a fucking legend.
He is
like,
a legend.
absolute goat. Like couldn't have asked for like a better like tour guide too.
Yeah, so guys, going on tours to Europe, right? Like you can always find these tour groups, which I didn't even know we were going on a tour, but this guy, he's American, but he speaks fluent German and he lives over there now with his wife Vonia, and they just both speak fluent German. They took all the guesswork out of the trip. They set everything up for us, so there was no dull moment. We were just go, go, go. So it was a great trip because of them. And I encourage anybody who's trying to go to Europe to do that. But one of the things that he set up, going back to that story, was this trip with this guy, Eric the Storyteller. And this is in Bamberg. And this guy just like comes walking up. We were in this church. It had these two giant steeples, whatever. We're waiting outside where this giant wall is. We're looking over the wall, and we just see him walking up. This guy's wearing sandals. He's got his, full outfit on, the lederhosen, the hat, and he's just walking up with a quart of milk. He's just drinking milk just on a hot day. Like this was like 75 degrees, just drinking a whole thing of milk.
In a box.
In a box, yeah, just like a box of milk. We're like, all right, this is interesting. And the guy comes up and he talks to Scotty, and he's like, all right, yeah, we're gonna start the tour. And he's like starting to talk to us about the castle, about the church. And then, like, when he's done telling his story, he would just walk away. Like, he wouldn't say, follow me. He just walked away. I'm like, can someone get my man Joe Biden? I don't know where he's going. Like, he just walked away. Like, someone point him in the right direction.
And then he went to the cathedral, castle, church, whatever you want to call it, and pointed out wasn't like a foot or something, or something on like the side of the thing was like what he wanted to show us. And this man had the dustiest feet too on top of that. Like, like clearly this man is a storyteller. Like this dude is like telling stories. He's just chirping all the time. Like half of it, you don't know if he's just pulling out of his ass, and half of it sounds kind of accurate. It's like, it was interesting. It's something that like could have went without, but like definitely a memory that's really sticking. So like, kind of seems like it was worth it because like it's the first thing we're kind of talking about here almost. It's like obviously this was kind of early in the trip, so it was kind of like one of the first things, but nonetheless, like having this like unique it's got like a dude out of like a storybook. Like it's just like an interesting character that just like morphs in and has to show us through Germany. And there was other tour guides that we saw other groups doing, but I felt like our tour guide was like the GOAT. Like this
the most
dude,
character.
Yeah, like definitely had character, and it was just a unique individual to say the least.
Yeah, because he would go to the United States too. He said he was like in Colorado or something, and he'd be wearing his full outfit, dude. Like he just looks like he's out of the mountains of Bavaria. It's like, dude, where are you from? Like people would just always ask him, like, where are you from? Like, what's your story? And he would just chirp like he does, telling stories.
Just telling stories. And I think that's how he met Scotty originally, was like he traveled to the United States, and like I'm pretty sure that's how they came in contact. It was like a unique interaction at that point, and maybe I guess they just formed a relationship off that, and it just kept going. But in terms of Bombeck, that was I really liked that city. Like I got a lot of great pictures of there, and if you want to see any of our pictures, go into our Instagrams. We made posts and stuff like that, and or our Facebooks. and you can see all the great pictures. Um, but just to like the red roofs and like the colors of the buildings and
Mm-hmm.
the way the streets were kind of lined up and
A lot of
all
cobblestone.
a lot of cobblestone. This is doing this. Doesn't
Pause.
even matter. Um,
Yeah, it was an old style city in a way. Um, you know, them talking about the history of it and the different rivers and streams and how, during World War II it didn't have one bomb dropped on it. Like that whole city is like definitely historic because of that, right? Like it's all original. It never got like destroyed like a lot of the other cities did. Like Munich got like flatlined during World War II from yours truly.
Damn.
We won. No. Yeah, but like even going to Germany, like in Munich, there is just the cool history of each building and where it stood in history and how like during there was the pivotal moments in World War II, there was certain historical events that happened there. That was all thanks to having the tour guide, like if we went on our own, we would have had a great time. Like when we went to Ireland, we had a great time. But having the tour guide talk about historical moments, showing us old pictures of what the areas in like the central square of Munich looked like back in, the 30s. It was really cool.
Yeah, I think that part was like really nice was to obviously see what things used to look like versus now, especially in Munich more than Bombeck. But still, like to have someone who's kind of like well for Eric the storyteller who's kind of been in Germany, who's lived in Germany, walk us through some stuff, and then Scotty who just has a great foundation of education to talk about things. He's really immersed himself in the culture. He lives there, so like he knows his shit, and like you
Yep.
could trust what he's saying is like pretty factual on based on some stuff. And to have someone who's from there who also speaks English, who's American, but lives the German lifestyle to show us through different things and get us into cool places that we probably wouldn't have checked out ourselves or had trouble getting into because we didn't speak the language. And like even the times that we didn't have like scheduled dinners, like getting into places sometimes a little weird because like you could tell they're like, oh, another Americans. Like they don't
Dude,
speak.
everyone stares at you too.
Yeah, they know you're American and like the language barrier, and especially when they're older, they don't like to speak English as much. And there was a little bit of that, but having the tours allows us to really experience things more naturally there, and I think I would recommend that for a lot of people.
Yeah, and one of the things the tour guides have also that I don't know if everyone's as good as Scotty, but like we just audibled, mid trip. We were supposed to be on this nice little river tour on the Danube River, which is a pretty, pretty historic river that runs through the center of Munich, and yeah, the river was too shallow for us to take a boat ride. So he's like, all right, instead of going on the river, we're just gonna take the bus over to this little brewery. We're gonna check out this castle, or sorry, the cathedral. I keep saying castles because of Ireland.
Yeah.
It was like a nice giant church that we went into, and it was beautiful over there, man. Like he didn't skip a beat.
Yeah, I think that was the one of the cooler things was like I was really looking forward to the boat tour, but to be able to pivot like that and just know a place to go and like all right, we can't go here, but we'll go do this instead. And uh, I think that was really cool because like the boat was supposed to take us to this specific. I think it's like a monastery was the thing.
Monastery.
Was where we're gonna eat food and drink beer and stuff, and so but we went to the brewery first, like you did say. So we went to the brewery first, aside, then went to the monastery for lunch,
Mhm.
which the boat tour would have taken us straight to there. And it would have been cool. The boat tour would have been cool to go down the river and stuff. But like you said, didn't miss a beat. And like to kind of just pivot like that, it takes some real like professionalism to kind of take control like that and just to do that. And that was really cool. And then after the monastery, there was like the river that was really fast flowing. And to be able to skip some rocks on that
Oh,
shit,
yeah.
I brought those rocks home.
Yeah.
Those were some of the best
Mint
skipping rocks, dude. Like
Yeah.
I got videos on Snapchat if anyone wants to see those. So
German beers, German cars, and German rocks.
someone asked me about the Autobahn at PT today.
Did they?
Yeah, they're like, "Did you guys go on that?" I'm like, "Not really. We're on a bus, but like we were
Yeah.
watching cars do it. It wasn't as like impressive as like people kind of like make it out to be. Like obviously, there were cars going fast, but like people don't like disrespect it. Like it seems like they kind of follow the law pretty like normally.
There's probably areas of Germany too, like closer to Berlin, where people can really rip it. Maybe. I mean, not in Berlin because of how urban it is, but I feel like more north, like north, there probably is more people driving that fast. But from Bamberg to Munich, it was like I said, kind of rural.
Yeah.
So I don't know if people are doing it over there. There were a lot of nice cars though. Like I'm a car guy, so like there was a lot of cool Porsches and BMWs, and there's like taxis that are all Mercedes taxis. It's like that's pretty cool.
Yeah, it's just a totally different experience than what we see here in terms of what, especially even taxis. I'm like goddamn, it makes sense where a lot of these cars are manufactured and stuff to have access to some of these things too. So there's probably a little bit of that as well. So
Yeah, they take pride in their transportation.
yeah, I mean, and that hits on another thing. Their public transportation was absolutely phenomenal. I kept telling people that. I'm like, that in their bathrooms. Like, there wasn't one bathroom I went in that was like, this is disgusting. Like, no, everything was like neat. Even like a lot of like their like streets and stuff were like really clean. Like, you didn't really see too much homelessness either. Like, it was like really put together there, which was like refreshing.
Yeah, exactly. I think they just have a little bit more of a tight knit community. They're more focused on the people themselves. Whereas I think in America we kind of get lost in our own lives. We kind of close, our, I guess family circles to around us. Like there's not as much of a social structure in small towns anymore as there used to be. At least not in the Northeast in New England.
Yeah, I would agree. And also it goes, I was telling people too, it kind of goes off of the fact of like they're Germans. That's what they are. They're Germans. In America, we have so many different like ethnicities and races and cultures, which I'm not saying is a bad thing, but when you don't have that underlying like root morale and like belief system that unites you, there's going to be some tensions that happen within a country like that, and that's like I guess you could say the negative aspect of America. Obviously, diversity does breed a lot of like unique inventions and creative like ideas and stuff like that. But when you look at countries like Germany, very tight knit, very like strict on their morals. They're very like respect the law. Like there wasn't a lot of fighting. There wasn't a lot of like crazy shit happening. Like they respect one another because they respect their fellow Germans, and I think that's like a cool thing to kind of like experience from our perspective.
Yeah, and we were in the state of Bavaria, but like what Scotty was saying is like Bavaria is very like yeah, screw the government. Like they're very like, I guess, conservative in that way because they're Bavarian first before they're German.
Yeah, and they had the blue and white flag flying most places over the German flag. Some you'd see the German flag, but the Bavarian flag was like definitely overriding that. It's kind of, it gave a, like he said, it gives a lot of Texas vibes in terms of where they have pride for their state almost.
Yeah, there's still a little bit of that like politicalness of the United States and Germany with like how it's divided between the state and like the government themselves.
Yeah, it's crazy to think too. Like we were talking, like as we were doing the tour in Munich, and we were seeing a lot of these structures rebuilt and stuff. Like a person ago, basically, like we fucking leveled this place, and now here we are touring it as tourists, and like that we're allowed to come here too. Like it's kind of interesting to see how like the interaction between our countries has like kind of like eased and like allowed for us to experience each other's cultures and stuff like that after such a like horrific world war. Like it's kind of, it's crazy to just think about. Like I don't know, like
that Marshall Plan did wonders.
it's just weird.
Clean that place up.
Like that we're allowed. I don't know. Like it's just like if someone like leveled like one of our cities, like it'd be tough. I would imagine for us to just allow them to like kind of like come back and tour it like normally. Like people would hold like some kind of like anger to that almost, I think.
Well, yeah, I think that's what we kind of learned from World War I and World War II is like, when you beat your enemy, you can't pummel them into submission because they're going to have animosity forever. So after World War II, we didn't just keep constantly blaming and charging, the Axis powers for what they did. We then, helped bring them back. We helped support them and help them grow their communities back up, right? Because after World War I, we just, like United States, France, we just pushed Germany down into like severe poverty. It's like the whole thing with the franc being worth nothing. So, crazy guys like Hitler rose to power because of the fact that it was in such a chaotic and nervous state. So yeah, I mean, I think that that's something that hopefully wouldn't reoccur. You know, I think that it was good that we built them back out. Same thing with like Japan. Like Japan loves tourism. You know, like after what happened to them. I mean, it's really cool to see them being such a thriving society, and now there's so much culture emanating from both Germany and Japan to the United States. You know, there's so much influence.
Yeah, and to kind of build off what we talked about earlier in the podcast, like the value of traveling is to when you go to these countries, to experience them from a different, like their way of life through like a different lens. Like
Yeah,
because obviously if you live in a specific area your entire life, you don't travel much, especially outside of the United States, you can kind of turn a blind eye to what the rest of the world is actually like. So when you get to kind of go out there, and especially when you get to ride public transportation and just like see people on their way to work and people like doing things, or when we're out in the cities and people are out, the kids are out and walking, and how Scotty talked about when people drink coffee, you sit and drink the damn coffee. Like
yeah,
you don't have to just take it and go and run and do your next thing. And like the way of life and the pace of life is way more like relaxed and like calm. And I think it's good for Americans to be able to go see that, and that's why I've always like on this podcast to encourage people to travel, and I think that's like super like good. I don't know what your take is, I guess, on like the value of travel that we've kind of experienced over the, like the last 2 years.
yeah. I mean, it's within your limits, right? Like everyone's got their certain budgets to hit, but anytime that you travel, it's important to try to immerse yourself as much as you can, I guess is what we can say, right? Because when we went to Ireland, we didn't have a tour, but we were going from like restaurant to restaurant, pub to pub. We were doing the, different tours of like the breweries and distilleries like Jameson and Guinness. But when we go out to restaurants, like we'd be in the restaurant talking to people, like socializing, like your dad made friends with some random guy from Wales. It's like it's cool to have those discussions and conversations because that's someone who lives a completely different life than you live. They live life through a completely different lens. So there's a lot that you can learn from them. Same thing with Germany. I mean, you see how they live. Like we said, it's a little bit slower paced. So to get a perspective on what things are like over there is really cool and interesting.
Yeah, and to especially go to a country that doesn't like speak your language almost too. I think to hear that over English predominantly is like a good thing. It kind of
Humbling.
yeah, it kind of reminds you just like yeah, you're not the only ones inhabiting this world. Like the people living a different life, speaking a different language, like that. Like we know this like consciously, but like subconsciously, we kind of get focused in our own daily like day to day lives, and to just see that way of living and the interactions and like I think it's just cool, and I would always encourage people to go do these things. Like Germany wasn't like on my like bucket list trips. Like when we first mentioned it, the plan was obviously Oktoberfest, and like I knew of Oktoberfest, but I didn't know it on like this level. So
Yeah.
as we kind of transition a little bit, we'll start talking about Oktoberfest, the main event as we kept calling it going into the week. What was your Oktoberfest experience like?
All right, so guys, we took a train over. As soon as you get off the train, there's this bridge that we have to cross over, and you have to take the stairs up to the bridge and then walk over the bridge. As soon as we get out of this train, it's shoulder to shoulder. It's packed, And our tour guide was like, "Oh, like it's been a little bit more packed than this, but it's still pretty packed." We walk through all the crowd. We get onto the bridge. We're walking over, and it's just there's people everywhere, just flooding down. So walk up to the actual venues. We have our tickets. We have our wristbands because we have seats at a tent. So while we're walking up, you see all the tents in the distance. You see all the people. You see all the rides because there's giant carnival rides. It's like the most grandeur of all carnivals that you can imagine, like full on roller coasters. And mind you, these are there only for those 3 weeks. And then after those 3 weeks, they tear the whole thing down in 3 weeks. So massive roller coasters up and gone. It's crazy how like efficient they are at setting that whole thing up. There's like I don't know how many, like 6 to 8 tents, giant tents. We can hear people singing in these tents like it's a Munich soccer game from like a quarter mile away, like chanting and singing. We're like, oh my God, this is insane. Like, this is an event. Learning the history, it was about like a marriage in 1810 or something like that of royalty. But like, it's all about drinking, right? Like, that's the whole event. So yeah, we get down there, we see all the crowds, we see people passed out in the field, people throwing up. We're like, this is gonna be rowdy. So we push our way shoulder to shoulder through the crowd to finally get to our tent. We have all our tables. We sit down and we have our beer tickets, and we just start tipping and drinking. Liters of beer.
Yeah, our tickets were. I was like, oh, we get 2 beers. That's pretty nice. Like, I think I could handle that. Like, we'll just have to buy a couple beers. No big deal. And they're like, no, 2 liters of beer.
Yeah,
I was like, that's like, I think your dad was saying it was like 2.8 or something around there. Like,
yeah, 5 to 6 beers.
yeah,
total
between the two.
Yeah,
And a lot of fucking beer, and then you get a chicken to a little bit, kind of like help you sober up a little bit in between the first two. But after that, it's just straight chaos. But I remember walking up to the event, like you're saying, it's super loud. You're hearing them saying "Country Road West," like the song. They sang "Sweet Caroline," while we were in there, and that was lit as like a Red Sox fans, like the whole thing. But we were walking up, and I just remember, I don't know if it was you pointed out or Jordan or someone pointed out outside of one of the tents, this dude just throwing up outside as we're like walking up. And then we get through the gates, and then like you said, you look to the right on the hill. This dude looked like he was like a mannequin, like just like passed out, like not even moving. Like this dude just got completely blackout, laying on a hill, and it's just like totally acceptable, totally fine. Like no one cares, no cops kicking him out, just leaving him there. And what I thought was so interesting was like how many like kids and blackout drunk people were. Like there's like just walking amongst each other, like people stumbling, not giving a fuck. Like it's just socially acceptable at Oktoberfest where like no one bats an eye. Like as long as, and there wasn't really like a lot of fights either. Like we saw one dude get kicked out of a tent where he got shoved, but like no punches thrown, no nothing like that. Like it was just really interesting to see that level of drunk people interacting with like just like families and shit that are there for like the carnival rides and like the different booths and shit. It was just so weird to see.
Yeah,
but
like people are getting hammered, and then you just look over and there's a kid at the table next to the parents.
There was also kids at like the tables
in the beer tents.
In the beer tents, and I'm like,
man,
this is like absolutely. It's just normal though. Like we said earlier, like the way that they drink is different. But obviously, once you're in the tent, all bets are loose. Like we had
people snorting menthol.
Yeah, so it looked like they were snorting coke, and they were just snorting menthol, and like it was
interesting to see.
Yeah, interesting to see, and just straight chaos. But we had the beers, then we had another beer. Then we were starting to top off each other's with like extra beer,
some schnapps.
You got a schnapps because your stomach was a little iffy, so
dude.
Scotty was like, "Yeah, get a schnapps; it'll help you."
Level up your stomach.
It just got you more drunk, and
I mean, correlation, causation. I felt better after that.
Yeah, we don't know if he just got
off the dog.
If you just got drunker or it actually helped, but nonetheless it worked. So like he was right, to be fair.
Yeah,
and
felt fine.
I think the first group was supposed to leave at what, like 7:30, and the second was supposed to leave at 8:30. Was it 8:30 and 9:30?
It was 8:30 and 9:30, and I feel like we all left at like 9:45 or something.
Yeah, and I heard that no one wanted to leave, and our group was pretty fucking rowdy. Like we were on the benches, all prosting
Dancing,
and
singing,
crazy, and I was like so glad we left when we did, because like I thought about it in the morning, like if we kept drinking, I easily would have blacked out. Easily. Like,
but I'd carry your ass home.
I had no idea how much I drank. I had to drink based on how many beers we got, like maybe like 4-5 liters, like based on how much we kept topping each other's beers off. Like I have no idea, because like we weren't getting like separate beers. We'd get a beer, we'd just dump it on each other's beer, get another beer, keep dumping it on the beers, and it was crazy. Like I said, like I haven't been drunk like that since like high school. Like it was chaos, and I barely remember half the conversations going home on like public transportations and stuff like that. Like,
yeah,
it was something else. Like
a solid time.
it was. we were just trying to make. The whole trip. I was just trying to make sure that I made it to the trip. Well, made it to
Right,
Oktoberfest. Like I didn't want to get sick. I didn't want to get too drunk and get hungover before the main event. I was like, just make it to Sunday.
Yeah.
And we finally made it to Sunday, and it was time to fucking let loose, and it was just amazing.
Yeah,
Like,
that Sunday, dude, my stomach was destroyed.
she kept wanting to get beer every 2 seconds.
Yeah.
Like, let's get more beer.
I
Beer,
just
beer.
couldn't chill out. We were having so much fun over there.
Once you get on vacation, you're just like, we're on vacation. You just got to do it. And I'm like, just because we're on vacation doesn't mean you have to like go all in. You got to pace it a little bit because like you got to make it to the main thing. And like I want to make it to the main thing in one piece.
Yeah.
And like you were like dragging that stomach, and like there was a little borderline catching there.
So their beer in Germany has a lot of barley and has a lot of malt in it. It's a lot heavier than like the beer here in the United States, and also heavier than like in Ireland, where we're just drinking Guinness. Guinness is like, people don't think Guinness is easy to drink, but it's pretty easy to drink. Like,
Yeah,
it's
it is.
smooth. You know, it's not that heavy. And plus, when you're drinking like whiskey, it's a lot of alcohol, but it's not a lot of liquid. Over there, like their beers, like I said, it's heavy. So like you don't know what it's gonna do to your stomach the next day, especially with all those the sauerkraut and sausages. Big sausage guys over there. Pause.
Oh,
But yeah, like all the smoked meat and everything, it destroyed my stomach. So being in a foreign country, screwed up stomach, you're gonna be doing tours all day. I was nervous, but hey, we got to those beer tents. I made it, and then whether it was the schnapps or not, but the boys were buzzing at that point, and it was a good night.
yeah, it was a great night. Tough morning.
Yeah.
But
You were still up early, man. You got up. You were ready to go.
Well, I was fighting in the morning. I had to get up, fighting the possibility of throwing up, and I tried. Nothing was coming. So I was like, just get in the shower, cold shower, get up, force myself to sober up. My dad went to breakfast. He was like one of the first ones down there. I was like, I gotta get food in me. Got the food in me, and then it was Monday, and it's like Sunday, everything closes. It's like nothing's open, so we didn't get waters before, but we got 3 sparkling waters, which was the most disgusting thing to drink hungover. Like that was fucking tough. Like maybe that's why I wanted to vomit, but like I was like, this is fucking gross. So I
Can't chug it.
no, it was just so gross, and it was warm. So like this is just ugh. So had to wake up after breakfast, and then I made the conscious decision to go get more waters. So I brought back more waters. I remember walking in, and you're just like, we should probably make a water trip. And I just remember just handing you the water, and it was probably just like,
Clutch.
yeah, like God sent almost, like, fuck, thank God.
Yeah.
Because, like, I knew how I felt when I woke, like, just, like, finally woke up, and I was like, fuck, I wish I had a water right
Dude,
now.
the absorbent amount of bottles we left in that room when we left.
We probably left him, like, $50 in water.
Right? Yeah, because over in Europe, that's one thing that's different too. In Germany, they make you pay like an allowance. Like you pay €2 for the bottles, plastic or glass, and then if you return them, they give you your €2 back. So we were like, oh, why is it like $5 for water? This is ridiculous. And then you're like, oh, it's only 3 because I give them 2. Give them the bottle, they give me 2 back.
I think it's a good thing. It's something that
helps.
if we implemented here, would probably help a lot with those crazy people who talk about the environment and stuff like that. They would love that. Like
I don't think it'll help them.
it won't help them, but
Nothing
I think
will save them.
I think it would help.
I care about the environment.
I think it would help.
I don't
And-
litter.
And the same thing with the bathroom. If you had to pay to use bathrooms, I think they'd be a lot cleaner too, because you'd probably care more that you're
Yeah.
spending money on it. And they have people cleaning their bathrooms too, because they're getting tipped like every 2 seconds, like for cleaning the bathroom, because they do a damn good job because it's not fucking dirty. So I don't know. There's a bunch of different things that would be beneficial to incorporate into our society, which adds on to the value of traveling, and to kind of bring this conversation home a little bit. Adding on to the value of traveling with family is something that has been like such a huge like blessing that I didn't realize like as we were doing it that was going to be really cool, and that we're kind of turning it into like kind of like an annual thing to go international each year, starting with Ireland and now Germany, and a pending Portugal trip possibly coming in 2024. I think it's really cool that we're able to do this, and we're definitely like lucky to be in positions to obviously afford stuff like this, and to all be in pretty solid health to plan this stuff, given obviously the climate of the way that things have been the last several years to do this. And I think if you have the means and are able to, whether it's family or really close friends, to go and travel and stuff like this, I think it's very underrated versus just kind of going with a couple people to more, I would say, lean towards family and stuff because it's just memories that you'll never forget. You don't always get, um, so you obviously don't get to live with your parents forever. Like there's a limited lifespan on that if your parents are obviously still lucky to be alive and things like that. So to be able to create these like memories and stuff, we'll be able to share with our families one day that we travel with them to different countries. It's definitely something that I don't take for granted for sure.
Yeah, exactly. Because you don't know how much time you're gonna have with them. It's you put a price on the trip itself, like they cost this much to go there, but overall they're invaluable as far as like what they actually mean to you, the memories that they give you.
Yeah, and I think that's an important aspect to kind of make sure that was included in this conversation. So I wanted to get on the podcast with you guys, bring Jake on. Didn't know he's gonna wear the leaderhosen, but it's
We
a
did it.
huge plus for you guys to kind of to see that. And I just wanted to make some content off it, talk about the Germany trip a little bit. And I think it's been a great conversation. Is there anything about the Germany trip that we missed that you wanted to hit on?
Um, Not that I can think of. I think that's just from the drinking.
Yeah, I mean we're still
Still a
got
little bit of brain
jet
fog,
lagged.
Yeah,
Yeah,
jet
little
lag.
little jet lag, little brain fog, like things are.
Download movies for the plane ride.
Yeah,
There you
and
go.
have AirPods, the Pros, so you can cancel out noise in case you have crying babies on your flight. Pro tip.
Pro tip.
Pro tip. I want you to kind of wrap things up, kind of tying back to the value of traveling. I'll kind of value of traveling, if you want to include the family stuff, kind of like a little bit motivational, kind of leave the people something positive to kind of wrap this up.
Yeah, I think that things can get, you could get tied into your day to day, and sometimes it's good to have another perspective. As we kind of talked about in other countries, they do vacation more than us, they take time away. It's always good to work hard, obviously, but it's also good to slow things down, take some time to travel, go somewhere else, get that different perspective. If you're there with loved ones, then you get to appreciate that and really, enjoy it together. I think it's memories that you're gonna cherish for a lifetime, and it's important to break out of your comfort zone. Because like you had said, you're gonna go to other countries that English might not be the primary language over there. Put yourself in the shoes of someone who's an immigrant coming to the United States. Over here we predominantly speak English, so they feel a little lost or left out. So if you're comfortable doing that, then do it. And if you have the opportunity, get a tour guide because they'll help take all the guesswork out of it. So don't be afraid to plan that trip. It might be costly, but I think you won't regret it.
Perfect. I think that was like an excellent way to wrap up this podcast, and appreciate you coming on doing this. I know we're a little tired after a busy week. You didn't take Wednesday off, so you're a little bit probably more tired. Getting back into the swing of things, but I think it was great. I think people are going to get a lot of good information on how the trip actually went from us without actually having to talk to us. So I think that was a cool thing. So if you guys like the podcast, please rate, review, subscribe, share with your friends, share with your family, share with your grandma. Check it out, thecarrollconnection.simplecast.com. Also Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and all the major listening platforms. If you want to watch your podcast, go on YouTube, search The Carroll Connection, or at Jared M. Carroll, should pop up right for you. If you want to be a guest on the podcast or come back, hit me up on Instagram at Jared M. Carroll or at The Carroll Connection, and we'll set that up. So, till next time, guys, peace.
Prost.